Greetings, everyone, and Happy New Year. Welcome to the January 7, 2026, if you can believe it, meeting of the Citizens Advisory Committee of the Transportation Planning Organization. My name is Rick Fernandez. It is my honor to chair this committee. And as is our normal practice, starting from my left around the room, I'm going to ask everyone to introduce themselves and their appointing authority. Again, my name is Rick Fernandez. I'm member at large Hispanic community.
Hi, everyone. Stephen Hollenkamp here from City of Plant City.
Hi, Dana Lazarus, appointed by City Councilwoman Lynn Patek.
Andrew Marquetti, appointed by Port Tampa Bay.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Christina Costa, and I'm appointed by City Council Member Bill Carlson.
Happy and prosperous new year to everybody. Joseph Citro, Commissioner Harry Cohen.
Matt Sink, I'm appointed by Councilman Alan Clendenin.
Chris Gonzalez, member at large.
Jamie Jones, member at large.
Carson Bush, member at large.
Clifford Reese, member at large.
Reba Ein, member at large.
Dustin Johnson, member at large.
Susie Watts, Commissioner Miller, put my name in.
Ed Majewski, Tampa Hillsborough Expressway Authority.
And Will Atkins for the Planning Commission.
Right, and online,
Good morning.
Stephen Jones.
Stephen, welcome and Happy New Year to you too.
Thank you.
count-
Happy New Year to you. Member at large, Apollo Beach.
Lauren Hughes, MPO liaison, Florida Turnpike.
All right, for the record, I
Sylvie
count,
Bertin, Hart, Hillsborough Transit Authority.
I count 15 in the room, just self-identified. I thought I counted 8. Anyway, we've got 7. So we've got quorum. 16 is the number? Okay. All right, so thank you all for making the effort. We have quorum easily, and this is probably one of the best turnouts we've had all year, counting last year, and I appreciate the effort. All right, that said, public comment. Is there anyone in the room? No? Anyone online for public comment? Right. All right, that takes us to the chair's report. If you've got your computer up and running, please mute. All right. Thank you. All right, chair's report on the agenda, just very quickly. By way of update, the TPO board last month did what we will do today by way of selecting officers for the new year. And they maintained the existing roster. Andy Ross out of Temple Terrace will serve as chair, and vice chair would be County Commissioner Josh Wastel. So that will be the status going through the next calendar year. As far as board actions that reflect the CAC items that we covered last month and the recommendations we made, the CAC recommended that the TPO board accept the Brightline Station area study. The TPO board did in fact accept that report. The CAC also recommended that the TPO board reject the proposed TIP amendment. I believe it was number 43, having to do with the 2 express lanes on I-4. We recommended rejection of that TIP amendment. The TPO board approved the TIP amendment. We have 2 new members joining us this month with voting privileges. Reva Inman at large at the end of the table here to my right, and Will Atkins, who did join us at the last meeting representing the Planning Commission. That's it for the chair's report. Any questions or comments on any of that? Nope. Minutes. Hopefully you had a chance to review them. They're part of your agenda package. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? This is for December 3 of 2025.
I motion to approve.
Dustin offers the initial motion. Susie offers a second. Is there any discussion? See no discussion in the room. I do have a comment on page 3 of the composite document. The last several lines, Rick Fernandez brought a typed motion, seconded by Chris Bella. I would ask that you include in the text of the minutes, the motion, what the motion actually was, which was to recommend that the TPO CAC recommended rejection of the proposed tip amendment number 43. That's not included in the text. It simply references the motion that I presented with several whereas clauses, and then the actual motion was the concluding paragraph. I think the motion itself ought to be segregated out for easy reference. With that exception, I don't have anything else. Any other comments? All right, by acclamation then, all in favor of approval of the motion? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
That was approved with the
With the
requested change.
With the requested change. Okay, that takes us to action items. And for the next few minutes, I'll shut up. Sarah Caper has the floor.
For some of you who've been here a while, heard this before. For others of you, this is your first time.
Sarah, excuse me, can you please use the microphone? I'm having a hard time hearing you with the humming.
I can, but the microphone doesn't work in this room. The microphone is for online, so I'll try to project louder this way. And if at any time you can't hear me, let me know. Okay, so this is taken from the bylaws, which were included as an attachment in your packet. It essentially says that the TPO may review and consider rescinding the appointment of any committee member who fails to attend 3 consecutive meetings, and that there be notification in writing before that happens. I know it's small. This was included in your agenda packet. I won't go through it in detail, but we do have the 2025 attendance included both in the slide and it attached, so you can see your fellow members. You'll notice a lot of positions were vacant, or they were filled and then vacant and filled again. And we do keep track of those who were not here and those who were excused. And that's why you letting us know in advance that you're not going to be here is important. That's how you get an E and not a red N. So included was this list of everyone as of the end of the year. Which leads me to the election of officers. We do this every year. There are no term limits. We have 3 positions: chair, vice chair, and officer at large. So in 2025, Rick was the chair, Stephen the vice chair, and Dana the officer at large. So our ask of you this evening is to recommend any members for removal due to absence, if you have any. I will note we have an at-large member who has not been here. I did reach out to them to see if they're interested and did not hear back. But it is up to the CAC to decide if you want to recommend to the TPO board to remove anyone or just leave people as they are. And then the real thing that we definitely need from you tonight is to elect 2 new officers. So the nomination can be done by anyone. You do not need a second. Once we get all of the nominations, we'll close the nominations, and then we vote individually until one member receives a majority of votes for an officer's position. So we start with chair, we'll take all the nominations, we'll start with the vote for chair, and then we'll do vice chair and officer at large.
I'd like to nominate Rick Fernandez to retain his post as chair of the CAC.
Are we not gonna deal with the members who haven't been here first?
Oh,
You may do it in whatever order you wish.
Okay,
do we have
it
it?
just seems like we should deal with that.
Sure. Are there any recommendations you have attendance review?
Just somebody that hadn't been here for 12 months, I would say, probably doesn't want to be on the committee.
Yes. So you recommend to your board that any members who haven't been here for a whole year should be removed?
Yes.
That does need a second.
I second.
I heard Susie first.
I'm sorry, but do we actually have somebody that hasn't been here for an entire year? Was that to be?
In here, we have,
Carolyn Brown.
the representative from Commissioner Myers, and then we have Carmietta Alexander, who is an at-large.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so, I have a motion to recommend removal of anyone who hasn't been here for a year from Ed, seconded from Susie. Any further discussion? Any discussion online? All those in favor say aye. All against? Okay, not hearing any, that is handled, thank you. Then we can open up for nomination.
Do you want me to repeat?
Yes.
I'd like to nominate Rick Fernandez as chair.
Any other nominations for chair? Okay, we don't need a second. All those in favor of Rick being chair, please say aye. Any opposed? And then I'll pass it to you, Rick, to do vice chair and officer at large.
Thank you. Well, appreciate the trust. I look forward to continuing the service. Just FYI, my term on the CAC actually runs, as I was told today, through April of 2027. So whether I re-up or not, I think I'm eligible as of April 27 for another term. I don't know that I will or won't, but I have enough time to serve out a year, and I appreciate having the opportunity to do it as chair. So again, thank you. All right, we're taking nominations now for vice chair. Do I have any nominations? Christina Costa.
I'd like to, Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate Dana Lazarus for vice chair.
Other nominations? Ed,
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Steve Hollenkamp.
other nominations? Right, called nominations closed. And I'll take the votes in the order that the nomination was presented. I'm thinking we do this by show of hands. 9. Right, it's-
If Dana gets 9, it's over.
okay, so all in favor of Dana as chair, please so
Vice
indicate.
chair.
Vice chair, I'm sorry. You almost snuck in there. All right. All in favor of Dana as vice chair. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Please keep your hands up because I have to write down who you are.
All right, go back around again. Dana, I assume you're a yes for yourself, right? Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Confirmation.
Andrew, Christine, Matt, Jamie, Clifford, Reva, Susie, Will, Dana. That means the majority voted.
10. Yep,
More than 9.
more than 9.
I'll double check the numbers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Dana then is elected our new vice chair, having achieved a majority. All right. We're now at member at large. Nominations for member at large, please. Matt Sink.
Can I nominate Stephen Hollenkamp for member of officer at large?
Other nominations?
I nominate Dustin Johnson.
Dustin Johnson. Other nominations? Dana?
I'd like to nominate Matt Sink.
Sorry, who?
Matt Sink.
Any other nominations? All right, I'm gonna make a nomination. Pass the gavel to nobody, I guess, right now.
Take it if you want.
I'd like to nominate Christina Costa.
Steven, Dustin, Matt, and Christine.
Okay, those are my four.
Okay.
All right, nominations closed. And again, we'll do this in the order that the nominations were presented. All in favor of Stephen Hollenkamp, please raise your hand. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
I have Dana, Matt, Chris, Carson, Cliff, Reba, Dustin, Ed, Will. Steven.
What's your total?
Wraps it up.
That's 10, okay. Okay, so Dana and Stephen and are elected as our vice chair and member at large respectively for 2026. Yeah? Okay. Thank you all very much.
Thank you all for being willing to serve. Yes.
You're welcome. Okay, did we have another action item under that general heading?
We have no more action items under that. We have another separate action item
Right.
of the performance targets.
Line item Bravo, the 2026 safety performance targets and public transit agency safety plan targets. Connor Rejos McDonald, PBO, in person. Mark the day. Good to see you.
Absolutely. Good to see you as well. Good evening, CAC. I'm Connor Rejos McDonald. It's nice to see you all. And a good turnout as well. So that's great. I'm here to present the 2026 safety performance targets as well as the public transit agency safety targets. So a little bit of a background, the TPO is required to set performance measures. Oops. Okay, there we go. The TPO is required to set performance measures by, were required by the U.S. Department of Transportation. And federal highway reviews the progress of highway safety performance targets. And for a little bit more of a background, there are 5 categories of these performance targets. Today, we're looking to update safety, which is the first. We're also looking to update the public transportation agency safety plan, which is first there. So what we're really focusing on is highway safety and transit safety. So the safety performance targets, there are 5 required measures and 2 that the TPO elects to do each year. So the 2 that are elected are fatalities and motorcycle fatalities with a 5-year rolling average. For some of you long-term CAC members, you will likely remember this presentation as we set targets each year at the beginning of the calendar year. So for fatalities, including fatalities per year and the 5-year rolling average, the rate and motorcycle fatalities, our method is to take the number from the previous year, so 2025, apply a 1% reduction factor to that. So that practice is identified in our LRTP, the Long Range Transportation Plan. It's identified as a federal highway best practice, and it also allows us to be data-driven and realistic, which is a requirement of the performance targets process. So overall, for fatalities, including motorcycle fatalities, we did see a reduction. We met those targets for those measures, but we're slightly above for fatalities on a 5-year rolling average and the BMT. With those reduction factors, we're recommending the targets in the furthest right-hand column. And what's really, the overall takeaway from this is that fatalities are going down. The 5-year rolling average, we have a higher number in there from 2021, I believe, so the number's higher, but fatalities overall are going down since. Okay, for serious injuries, another, and the same takeaways that they're going down as well. The method here is also to apply a 1% reduction factor when we met the targets that we set in 2025. And when we predict these numbers, we're pretty close, if not spot on. In the past, the board has requested to see fatalities for the different populations, so this is here for that information. This is fatalities per 1 million people. So we can see a reduction there, even though the population increased in recent years. And the source of that population data is the Florida Office of Economic and Demographic Research. So with the news that fatalities are going down and serious injuries are going down, what are we doing and how can we continue to do that? FDOT has several efforts that they have done, including emphasis areas. So their data-driven priorities used to guide safety, strategies, investments, and collaborative actions across the state. They're organized as roadways, road users, user behavior, and traffic records or information systems. The roadways focuses on infrastructure-related factors. Road users focuses on demographic or mode-specific factors. User behavior focuses on behavioral risk factors. And overall, the takeaway here is that DOT is taking an all hands on deck, multifaceted approach to accomplishing. And then what are we doing here at the Hillsborough TPO? We have several corridor studies as well as the safety treatment effectiveness evaluation, which is actually a recommendation that came from the safety performance targets presentation. And that'll be coming in March. We also have community events that we coordinate with external partners. We program projects with federal dollars. So transitioning to the Public Transportation Agency safety plan targets. There are 4 measures: fatality rate by mode, injury rate by mode, safety events rate by mode, and system reliability. I'll get into what these mean with the definitions. So the fatality rate, we're at 0 for all modes. So that's good news that the target is 0. Injury rate by mode. Our use is historical data to predict the future numbers and set a target. Injuries include injuries of aboard vehicles and within a facility or station. So safety events, these are things like collisions, fires or smoke, derailments or evacuations. We're recommending these targets here. It's also important to note that HART, as the sole transit agency, we typically adopt their targets. And that's a practice across the nation. If an NPO has one transit agency, they would typically adopt straight from the agency's standards.
Those are going up in numbers though, did you notice? And you just adopt them because that's the accepted thing.
Yeah, so we typically would recommend adoption because that's HART's, that's typically the best practice. But what's important to note is that safety events like these evacuations, with the fires or smoke, they go on a rate. So they're using historical data to know what's going to happen. And that actually is a good transition to system reliability. It's measured by the mean distance between major mechanical failures, which is represented here. And they kind of use these numbers to predict what could happen. So the streetcar, for example, there have been several updates. So they hope to have a higher distance between those mechanical failures. So with that, the recommended action is to recommend the TPO board approve the the 2026 Safety and Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan targets. I'm here to answer any questions.
All right, Connor, thank you. All right, over here to my left, anyone have questions or comments? Christine, see your hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Connor. I've been through this exercise. This is probably my 8th or 9th time. And it strikes me as very troubling just as a matter of practice because it feels like we're budgeting for future deaths. It's also the exact same exercise that happened in Europe about 40 years ago when it was acknowledged that they created Vision Zero because they found it morally reprehensible that we would just bake these numbers into our systems. And while I appreciate all the great work that the TPO staff does, I just wanted to say that out loud. I do have a couple of questions, if I may. And Mr. Chair, I have probably 4 or 5 questions, so I don't want to hog all of Connor's time. So should I just do 1 or 2, or what's the appropriate approach?
Why don't you go ahead and ask your first question, and then I'll go around the horn and come back to you.
Okay. I wanted to, well, one is just a request to define. So I'll make that request and then I'll pose the question. So my definition is if you could just clarify for everybody's confirmation, what is the definition of the non-motorized section that you report on? And then I wanted to know if FDOT, to your knowledge, does FDOT have on the FDOT areas of emphasis, there isn't anything that relates to having the appropriately posted speeds. And the speed study that was done 5 years ago by the TPO resulted in the finding that 85% of Hillsborough County high injury corridors have speeds. I'm not saying speeding, that's a system user issue. I'm saying posted speeds, 85% are higher than what is recommended for their current context by established national leaders. So is there a speed area of emphasis to make these high crash corridors context specific speed settings?
So, yeah, absolutely. So that answer to your first question, the definition, non-motorized means pedestrians and bicyclists. That's the data that we use. So I imagine you're kind of thinking of scooters. So those may not, I don't think those are included. Actually, no, they're not included. And then e-bikes may be included, but that's because of the way the officer is going to report it on the crash report.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. And then the answer to your second question on speed in the highway safety plan, those emphasis areas. I would have to look back at this strategic highway safety plan just to confirm. But I do imagine that's included in, yes, user behavior under speeding and aggressive driving.
Okay, so under roadways, which is where infrastructure is housed, there is nothing there that aims at speed reduction that would be now consistent with any given roadways context. There's nothing there right now.
I'm not sure. I can
Okay.
certainly double check. So I get what you're saying though, as an infrastructure mechanism instead of a user behavior mechanism.
Right. Okay.
On down the line here. Dana.
What is why on the table where it shows rate of fatalities per, I guess, 100 MVMT, it says that the rate has increased, but on the chart, the line chart, for rate of fatalities per capita, it shows that that's gone down. How's the fatality rate going up for one statistic and down for another?
So do you mean this 5-year average here of 204 to 207?
Yeah,
Right, great question. And that's because the 5-year rolling average includes 2021. But then going to 2026, that 5-year average then moves to 2022. So 2022, 23, 24, 25, and 26. So in 2021, there was 255 fatalities. And then moving that 5-year average, you get a lower number. But as it relates to, you said per fatalities per capita
Per capita for BMT,
for BNT.
two different denominators.
okay, well, I just think it's interesting for everyone to know that this is how data can be manipulated to show different things. One thing, so last year, I distinctly remember asking because of that line chart that shows that the rate of fatalities per capita is going down. And everybody was like, wow, why is that happening? And we asked for some kind of presentation or report on why, what was actually done. Was it bike lanes implemented? Was it like, because at one point you were talking about studies that were done, but studies don't result in tangible, impacts to fatality and injury rates. So what I would love to see some kind of like summary in a presentation like this, or even a larger effort. I feel like this is exactly what I asked for last year. Like some kind of study of why the numbers are going down, based on like number of miles of safety infrastructure, for example, that were actually put into the dirt this year.
Absolutely. So if I understand your question correctly, you're looking to see like almost a before and after of implemented infrastructure. So yeah, absolutely. So we have a safety effectiveness evaluation. That's the title of the study. I know it's a study, but it's reporting on the before and after, and that's coming to you, I believe, in March. So we have.
Is that an annual thing that's done?
It is, I'll jump in, Sarah Caper. It is a one-time project that we initiated based on what we were hearing. So it is looking at it is looking at certain types of improvements that happened in certain different kinds of facilities that are happening here in Hillsborough County or in the region to see the before and after of those. I would ask if it's okay with you that you think about that presentation once you see it matches what you're looking for. If it doesn't, I would suggest that this committee consider making a motion if you as a committee want to see this, because we have these items on our member interest item list. But as many of you know, our member interest item list is very long, and we program it in when you have time on your agenda, and your agendas have been quite full lately. So if we get a motion from you to kind of prioritize that, that would go to the top of the list. But I do encourage you to see if the March presentation has what you're looking for. But either way, if you would like something that in depth, we probably need a recommendation, some kind of action from the CAC, because it's not a quick lookup of data to do that.
Okay, I appreciate that. I was thinking maybe even just a snapshot of like, sure, maybe you're tracking the number of projects that were implemented this year, which would be interesting to kind of compare like miles or number of projects from year to year as it relates to this data. Just
So
possible.
just so I understand, just to make sure I understand, you mean like the amount of safety projects that are implemented compared to this information?
Right, Andrew, I think I saw your hand
I
up.
think that's really an interesting point. It could be capital allocated to safety projects and the, the efficiencies or betterment that comes as a result of the kind of measure. You could spend billions of dollars, but how is that measured? I share Christine's point. I think I understand that, well, maybe I don't. What are we're approving a target. What happens when we approve a target? What's the point of approving a target for the TPO?
Right, so there's a couple answers to that. One is that, we're required to report these to federal highway. And what happens is that we evaluate these as part of our TIP development and as part of our LRT development. So when it comes to implementation, we take these targets and we see what projects that we have programmed are like going towards that. So if we're actually programming projects that are going to meet or going to get close to these targets. But another part of that answer is to say that we report these numbers, there's not a punishment.
Yeah, I share it. It's hard to say, you know, I'm gonna approve a target of 140 fatalities. It's like, no.
Yeah.
I'll approve 0. And I understand, my head's not buried in the sand. I understand that things happen, but it's like, it's not a target, maybe it's a trend or something of that nature. I don't know how you want to, you know, dress it up, but I have a hard time voting for something that says the target of deaths, fatalities, all these different things. And I get it, but
And I completely understand. And part of the requirement is in the language, it says that it should be data driven and realistic. You know, of course, a lot of us, if not all of us, would like to see that number be 0, but that's the requirement. In addition, there's like a little bit of semantics as well. So we may maintain the goal of 0, but a target of a different number.
right. And I'm fully supportive of using, I get that capital doesn't grow on trees, using the money as best as possible where you find it to be most efficient. Right. And then and just continuing and finding, you know, being data driven and where can we make the biggest impact with the dollars we have and continuing that process. Fully supportive of that. But to vote on a target of fatalities is.
Joe Citro.
Then to carry on that subject, if we as a committee here were to say, no, we don't like these, we want them to be much lower. Would that have any significant direction on what you guys are going to do? If we were to say, no, this is not up to standards, we want them to be lower. Would that affect anything in the future?
I may rely on you a little bit, but I think what would happen is that when we're reporting those numbers and the TIP and the LRTP, our explanation to getting those targets would be more difficult for staff, right? Because we don't have that data-driven realistic number. But as far as like setting a lower number, it is up to the board. But again, we really try to maintain that requirement, data-driven.
And I thank you for that. So if we were to say, no, we want half of these, would that strive harder for better roadways? For better protection of people that walk, bike, drive? Would that set a better standard?
Essentially, it would create a standard for us to explain why we didn't need it in our reporting and the TIP each year.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Having a hard time getting out of this corner of the room. So Stephen.
Yeah, Connor, I'm curious, this exercise is a requirement. Curious if, you know, the US DOT provides like guidance on what the average reduction is, or any other kind of guidance on how to approach just picking a number that you're going to reduce deaths by. It feels like a tough exercise to do. So I'm curious how you guys approach it, if you get any guidance.
Definitely. So there is some guidance from USDOT. There's some best practices, reports that have been published, you know, where they've looked at other MPOs and their practices. I will say that it is a wide variety of what MPOs do. But on the other side of that coin, we have been identified as a best practice by federal highway, that's specifically local to. And that's something that Johnny, our executive director, developed the 1% reduction factor based on available funding. So we are commended for that.
Okay, down the line, Matt Sink.
Thank you for doing this. I appreciate it. 2 questions. What constitutes a serious injury? And then when we're talking about being data driven, has there been a conversation about comparing our goals to peers versus just a blanket 1% reduction?
So to answer your first question on serious injuries, it's also known as incapacitating injuries, so life-changing injuries. It's kind of how I would define it. And then compared to other MPOs, if I understand your question correctly, it's how our numbers are compared to the MPO, or is it how our targets are compared to?
Our crash rates.
Yeah, so yes and yes. So kind of, if we look at our peers who are performing or out, they're doing better than we are, wouldn't it make more sense to look at our peer group who's making improvements versus giving a 1% blanket? I guess would be my question. Like if we saw best practices from a similar MPO, why wouldn't we adopt their goal or how they're getting there versus just pulling a percentage every year? Like 1% is like every year we improve at 1%. That doesn't really define how we get there, opposed to looking at peers who might have done processes and saying, okay, we're around the same size, or we have the same things. Shouldn't we be comparing ourselves with others who are also improving to set our goals so we can kind of mimic those policies and processes? I guess that's my question.
Definitely. So again, to repeat it, your question is how we're comparing our methods of setting targets to what other MPOs similar to us are doing.
Correct.
Right. So I definitely have looked into what other MPOs are doing, and there's a mix. And some even use like more qualitative information. I will say they kind of look to us as well. So hopefully that answers, but that's definitely something we can do more research into, comparing how we're doing with our methods versus others.
Jamie?
So just a point of clarification off that, who are the peers that you would say, match our community, our market?
So typically we look at Canales, they're close and similar. We also look at Metro Plan Orlando. They're a little bit bigger in that they have multiple counties, and then we look at Broward as well. But Broward, I would say, is like the closest to what our numbers are.
Any other Carson?
So just going with that, looking at just the numbers, regardless of if the actual numbers are going up or down, the targets are just always being reduced by 1% from the last year's targets. Like it's not seemingly not taking into consideration the 2025 actual.
Yes, it takes that 2025 actual and applies that 1% reduction. So the fatalities you see 148 to 147. But the reason you're seeing, maybe the question is, the reason you're seeing from 207 to 185 is that we're taking out 2021 and moving into a new 5. So the 147 is included in that 185.
Okay, you there? Okay. Any other questions here to my left? Cliff, did you have anything? Okay, right side.
So I don't necessarily have a question. I more have a suggestion for future reports on this. And it's going to piggyback on what Dana has asked for. I think there needs to be more information regarding as far as implementation of projects and where we're seeing this. Because as a advisory committee, we're supposed to advise on certain projects moving forward. So to understand what projects have been implemented out there and seeing the effect of those safety issues. I figure by now there should be some data there over a 5-year time period. And the reason why I ask this is because we know that Hillsborough County just started the whole school zone measures, the bus measures. We aren't going to know what that real data is of implementing that, but we know the purpose was to reduce fatalities of kids getting hit at the bus stops, right? We may see after a year, we may see after 2 years, we may see, and it's going to demonstrate what was the return of investment on doing that. And I think that's what needs to come into play here, because you're telling me just, hey, approve these numbers. Well, and I know it's been asked from other people is moving forward, how is that going to help us as a advisory committee to advise forward? There is some information. I looked at this. I mean, it's not bad, but I'm like, well, there's a lot of missing information. I mean, what was pointed out, the one about, okay, over 1 million people, well, drastically, that number, I can easily say, well, that's probably, modified, codified, however I want to make it play out, because we know more people have moved into Hillsborough County over the years compared to since 2023. So obviously, if I have more number of people, yeah, my rate's going to go down. But how many fatalities were there truly there? You know, what was implemented? I mean, we know they talked about wrong way drivers. Okay, we implemented something for wrong way drivers. From that day that it was implemented, look, the number one wrong way drivers has reduced by such and such. Okay, cool. But just throwing numbers out there, there's got to be a little bit more meat to this presentation in my mind. And I recommend future presentations has that meat in it.
Right. I completely understand. I think to respond, again, that before and after study that we are conducting coming back in March is response to that request. Because we have read that in the past safety performance targets presentation. So that'll get more into that information about, like, for example, we did look once at Fowler, Fletcher, where the big block crossings were implemented, what were the rates before and what were the rates after the same time bands. It did show a reduction, so we're doing a similar thing with this before and after study. With this practice, it is more high level reporting to federal highway. So I completely understand that, and it may not be in as depth as you may wish, but what we're looking at is what we report to federal highway. And then alternatively, we can come back with the before and after and get more into the impacts.
Okay, Susie, Ed, Will, anybody? Ed?
Hey, can you go back to the transit, the hard performance measures? I think there were a couple slides there that I was having a hard time understanding. Okay, not that one. Keep going. Okay. So art is, their target is to have a higher rate of injuries on bus. Okay, and go to the next one. It's with even more puzzling. Okay. No, go to the next slide.
The reliability.
Yeah, okay, so explain this to me. I mean, I understand it's million, what's the MDB, MMF stand for?
Right.
What's it stand for?
Mean distance between major mechanical failures.
Okay, so the distance, not the time, but the distance.
Right. So the higher the number. The
Okay,
greater-
so we're for buses, we're saying that we want to have, we expect, I don't know what, a significant change in incidents. Instead of being 8,000, they're going to be 6,000. Am I twisting that around, or the distance between incidents, instead of being 8,000 miles, is going to be 6,000?
They're getting worse, yeah.
And on demand responsive, instead of it being 15,000, it's going to be 5,000 between incidents. That just seems unacceptable to me. And I don't care if that's what CART accepted. I don't see how we can endorse that.
I think the word target is the wrong word. That's a trend, or that is a projection, or that is a,
But even as a projection,
basically a
I
hard
mean,
saying,
those numbers
we need more money for our buses, is what that tells me. Just looking at the data.
They anticipate more breakdowns because the buses are.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's like,
But it's not, it's not a target. A target is something that you try to strive for, or, hit. That's to be
I mean,
a trend, or
That's, yeah.
if you think that we're now 8,800 miles between breakdowns, and we're anticipating next year it's only going to be 6,000 miles between breakdowns. I don't know, is there an underlying story of that the buses aren't being maintained properly? That's what it sort of would seem to indicate.
Is that what they're saying?
Sui is actually online from CART, but to kind of answer the question, in my understanding, is that CART is showing that their bus quality, not like the quality of the buses sort of, but also like the quantity of buses, what their fleet looks like may not be as great in the following year. So what they're kind of suggesting is that they're,
They have an aging fleet.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but haven't we
I
recommended going
can,
on financing
I
and
can,
then?
Okay, hold on. Let's bring this in for a landing. Let's finish what we're doing in the room. You have another question?
No, that's it.
Okay, Will, did
so,
you- I understand that. Will, did you have a question? Okay, all right. Whoever that was online, would you identify yourself, please?
yes, good afternoon, good evening. This is Toby Bertan from Hart. I'm the safety and security manager at Hart. So, just to clarification, and I know it sound odd and it sound, setting up a target. It's not really, maybe not the real word we should be put on, but it's a requirement that we have to set a target, and we try to shoot for this target. It's not something that's required, but FDOT and state safety oversight is requiring us to just uh, give us a project number, and we usually like to go for less, and this is what everybody trying to do as always. So if you see in the bus side, yes, we try to minimize our breakdown on the buses. Okay. uh in 2024 it's 8,000. We try to minimize that, and in the same times for the streetcar it's already minimum, because the 33,000, it's the target that's we telling the state safety oversight that we gonna be trying to get minimums in this, and the breakdown in 2024 is 8,000. So it's a very, very minimum number. Now, again, if you look at it for the bus side, it's yes, the 8,000, it's a more for than the 6,000. We're trying to shoot down for the 6,000. For the streetcar side, it's 8,000. The requirement, or we get in the minimum percentage of 33,000. So we don't. It's this for the streetcar is great, because it's a very small system, and again it's a main distance between mechanical failure. This is not the the amount of failure of the buses. This is the distance. This is the mileage between the failure. It's average mileage between the failure. So I just want to clarify that to everyone. This is not how many buses is breaking down. This is the mileage between the failure.
Okay, thank you. Ed, does that clarify?
It does, because I mean, the point is, you've got a car, and last year it broke down 88 every 8,000 miles, and next year it's gonna break down every 6,000 miles. I mean, that's going in the wrong direction. It's going big time in the wrong direction. I mean, I understand that it's distance between failures. I get that. I understand that, but like, why is it so much worse? We're expecting on our demand responsive that right now we go 15,000 miles without a breakdown. And our target for next year is we're going to have 3 times as many breakdowns.
Okay, I'm gonna just explain another thing. This number is not based on one bus. It's based on the whole fleet. Keep in mind
get that. I understand
that fleet, the buses, it's getting, so you got one new buses and you got old buses, and the buses gets older. So when that happened, yes, the number is conflicting, yes, because you got maybe you add in, and I don't have the number in my head, but we're not adding as much as we add 2 years ago of the new buses. So your old buses, it's of course it's gonna break down more. And so that's maybe put in consideration of that.
Will, did you have anything else? No. Was there anything online before I try to go back around the horn?
And CAC members online who have a question or comment?
Hands up.
I don't see anyone.
Okay, I'll note for purposes of our time management. This item is scheduled to conclude in 4 minutes. And I'm I'm not necessarily wedded to that, but if we want to try to stay on schedule, we need to litigate this and dispose of it one way or another in the next very few minutes. So please keep that in mind as we're going around. Any other questions or comments here to my left? Andrew?
I would just recommend, it sounds like this is a state requirement to vote on this action. I recommend maybe taking some of this data a step further. The state can require what they want, but maybe we can do something broader or improved, right? And I don't know what the right data set is, but it could be, there was 147, 148 fatalities last year. We think, actually 65% happened at an intersection in a traffic accident. They'll call that round numbers 100. Well, there's some intersections have 1 or 2 incidents a year. That could be an anomaly, just someone that was distracted. But there's 5 that have 4 or 5 a year. Our target is to have no intersection with more than 4 fatalities a year. And then the next year, let's address that with capital, make the improvements, and then the next year, let's not have an intersection with more than 3. Right? Start to scale that back because so you find where the bad actors, where the bad intersections that we can start to make improvements instead of saying, target of 147 fatalities, send it off to the state. That sounds good. It's like, how do we really target where these issues live, and then how we can make improvements from there. So I just implore a little bit more than what the state's requiring when the state is looking at counties and cities across the entire state in a very simple manner.
Okay, anything else here to my left? I see a couple of hands, 3 hands, 4 hands. Y'all don't want to go home tonight. Okay, that's fine. Dana?
Similar statement that, we passed the tip last year, and that's a 5-year forward-looking projection or plan of what projects are going to happen, what projects are funded. I'm sure that Johnny's formula is brilliant. If others are looking at it too, with the 1% reduction based on available funding, which sounds like a formula that I don't even understand when that's stated. It's a 1% reduction factor based on available funding. I don't know what that means. It would be nice to have that broken down. But what would make more sense to me, similar to what Andrew said, is based on projects that we know are coming, how will that impact our numbers? And we could look at past years to see how projects impacted numbers. That's all.
Okay, I saw other hands. Christine?
I had a lot of other questions, but I'm gonna be really short right now, and I'd like to make a motion because I hear a lot of us clamoring for all the projects that come before us and have come before us. How are they affecting these numbers? How are they positively affecting a reduction in our crashes and our serious injuries, fatalities and serious injuries? So I would like to make a motion that supports Dana's request from last year that we elevate what Sarah described earlier, if I'm not saying it right. I'd like to propose that make a motion that we prioritize the request from Dana last year that will help us correlate what projects have been put in place from when the high injury network speed study was completed, and refresh that presentation for our group because most people have not seen it and not familiar with it. And what's happened that we've approved and how have those projects, what has been the outcome of those projects specific to numbers of crashes?
If I may, Christine.
Yeah.
And Chair, can you clarify the part referencing Dana's motion from last year? Because we want to make sure we get it right. So either if you could say exactly what it is or exactly when it was made, so because you're referring to something that happened at a different meeting.
Yes, I hear you.
Before we do that here publicly on the record, how about, could you take a little bit more time to think about how you want to vocalize that motion? Even if it means the two of you going out in the room and talking about it for a minute? They can't do that?
Do that. We're in a, it just stay here because they're gonna
Yeah,
act
but
on
we can
it.
work together in here.
They
Is that
can work
correct?
together to come up with language for motion.
It has to be in a part where everyone can hear it from the public. So they could do it here,
All right,
talking.
fine, if you want to try to do that. I mean, frankly, I didn't understand the motion, the way it was voiced.
Yeah,
And if you're trying to incorporate some thinking from Dana, you need to figure that out a little bit. I'll come back to you, all right?
all right.
I'll come back to you. There were some other hands up here on the left. Joe?
Not to be redundant, but hopefully next year when you present this, we can get a how. And how are you going to get from this figure to this figure with the monies that you have available to you? As was stated, yes, there is some traffic places, some crosswalks, and we're going to reduce this figure by putting in this. We're going to reduce this figure by slowing down traffic. Get us a how you're going to reduce those figures. Please. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Was there anything else here at the left? Jamie?
So my whole thing is, of course, we want to say that 0 is the only thing that's really acceptable. But can you also add in benchmarks? Whether it be Pinellas or whatever, whoever our goal is, right? That is like, all right, we respect this somehow. Because what I'm trying to figure out, especially if we look at this whole conversation about the mean distance between major mechanical failures conversation, right? One part of it is saying like, we expect it to get worse. But that sucks, right? Like, so really there should be a benchmark that says like, we never wanted to go below this, or, for that one. So for this one, it's, what is our actual benchmark? Is it national? Is it state? Is it, the county over, whatever it is? I would like to just know those. Or have those to look at while we are assessing everything else.
Okay. Anything else in the room? I'm cognizant of the fact that there's a motion being incubated over here to my left. Over here to the right, anything?
Well, I'd like to make a motion.
Any other questions or comments before we get to the motion? No, online, anybody?
Anyone online? No members online wishing to comment.
Okay, so discussion on this is closed. Dustin, you have something?
I motion that we do not accept these results based on lack of information. And we've obviously seen there is a lot of questions we have here. And one of the things that I think was really hit the nail on the head with this lack of information regarding the whole public transportation piece has, I know in this past year, we've had motions come before us to authorize some funding for purchase of buses and renewing of maintenance centers and so forth. And then there's also a plan of reducing bus routes. Yet CAR is still saying that, well, we're gonna have worse over time, there's gotta be more information there. So I recommend we do not accept this report as the way it's currently drawn up.
Be a recommendation to the TPO board.
Okay, hold on. Could you put the ask slide up, please? Recommended action. Recommend the TPO board approve the 2026 Safety and Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan targets. Dustin, would you please address your motion to that recommended action?
My recommendation is not to approve the 2026 Safety and Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan targets due to lack of information.
Do you have to?
Required to make a sound decision on approving these targets. And what that information is regarding planning moving forward on how to achieve those.
Keep it as short as you can.
Okay.
Right, you don't want this recommended action to move forward, so you're recommending that this be not approved.
At this time, yes.
Okay, there's a second from Will Atkins. Is there any discussion on that motion? And I'm Dana.
Yeah, so I guess quick point of clarification, because Christine already made a motion, but I guess it wasn't seconded. We just talked about making a motion.
Right.
Okay, so
And there isn't anything that's going on with Dustin's motion right now that precludes you from making a motion later. Yes.
well, I would just say that I think one thing that I would like to add to Christine's motion has to do with improvements that can be made So we can suggest that the formula is revisited and that they consider basing it on, like the suggestions over here, a peer community that we want to emulate or projects that are in the tip. And that would be one additional part, I think, to this motion, in addition to the before and after snapshot that I would like to see added to future presentations like this. So I just want to put that out there to kind of offer, like, if we vote to reject this, that we can also make a motion to suggest that the staff revisit the formula and improve it.
Okay, well, we have a motion on the table right now, so we
Say
can
it,
come back, we can come back to that in a moment. All right, we have a motion by Dustin, we have a second by Will. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Just to be clear,
Jamie.
do we have to, Chair, do we have to amend the motion to say we're specifically, we recommend blah, 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 we recommend not to approve it based on lack of information?
You can provide, addendum reasons if you want, but you don't have to. Okay, they're asking us to approve it, to recommend to the TPO board that this be approved. We're saying, I think, by virtue of this motion, that we don't want to recommend approval.
Yes.
That's it. We don't have to give the reasons. Not in the motion.
Would it have any additional impact if we gave the?
It might,
reasons
but it
within
doesn't
the
need to be in the motion. I can provide that as part of the chair's report to the TPO board. We can figure out a way to distill it, but, all right, any other discussion on Dustin's motion? Okay. We do this by roll call or acclamation? Let's try acclamation. All in favor of Dustin's motion, please signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Please note that recommendation as a unanimous recommendation. Okay, Dustin, thank you. Now, back over here. You all have a separate standalone motion you want to make?
Let's see if we can tighten this up and make it quick. Could you please repeat what you requested last year? And I just make another mention that Sarah said we have that in the queue as a member request, but it's not. It needs elevation if we're going to do it. So if you could please refresh, what did you request last year? And then I'll try to transform that into the motion I want to make.
I simply requested a study on why the fatality and injury numbers were going down.
Okay.
And I assume that's what the study is in March. Going to show
Not
us.
exactly.
Okay.
The study in March is a look at before and after data on certain improvements in the region. So it has certain types of improvements at certain types of location, like urban, suburban, and it says this is what was before and this is what was after. And it looks at safety, but it also looks at things like economic value.
I think that's close enough to what I requested.
All right, so the motion would be that in conjunction with the March report that will show in conjunction with the March report, I would like to motion that we request to revisit the findings from the high injury crash corridor speed study. So that would give us, that's what my motion is.
This be a motion or just like a member request to Sarah that when they present that study in March, that they also revisit the study you just said.
Well, what I'm trying to do is get to where we have a 5-year look back. We identified the high crash corridors. So these are patterns, not just incidences. And then we'd be hearing, if I understand correctly, what's happened since and how does it correlate?
Narrative. Yeah.
Right. So does
Okay.
that need to be a motion or?
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion by Christine. We have a second by Andrew. Any discussion? Dustin,
I would like to add on, if I can, that motion.
you can offer an
That
amendment.
would make whatever the study in March is, okay, if that was driven by a committee member recommendation, but mirror that to these planned targets in the future.
Yeah.
So that way, when you have us, when the planning commission has us make this recommendation for approving these safety plan targets, that study is with that recommendation.
So you understand where the numbers come from.
Boom, there you go.
All right, I'm trying really hard to
Yeah.
navigate the traffic through this room, let alone what's going on out on the streets. There's a motion. You've now offered an amendment to the motion. That amendment requires a second. We'll litigate that amendment first, but I'd like you please, as concisely as you possibly can, it's not a speech, it's a motion. Give me the motion that you would like us to consider for a second.
Motion is to mirror this safety study. I don't know if they're gonna call it in March.
You call it what you want to call it right now.
Okay, so to mirror the safety study presentation together with, or present the safety study presentation together with the annual safety and public transportation agency safety plan targets.
Okay, is there a second to this?
Second.
Susie offers a second. Okay, is there any discussion on the amendment being offered by Dustin? Dana?
I don't know, sorry, it feels so complicated, but I feel like TPO staff, I would like to amend the amendment to recommend that TPO staff.
Does somebody else want the chair now?
Base.
We can do the election again.
To base or look into, to consider updating the formula for the safety targets based on the findings of those studies.
Are you offering an amendment to the amendment? Is that what you're trying to do here?
Yes.
Yes.
I think we can get that done in March once.
Yeah.
Is there a second to Dana's offered amendment?
I second.
We'll have another bite at the apple in March, which is what it lacks information or doesn't lack.
Except that I will rescind my amendment to the amendment.
But on the same page.
All right, we're gonna litigate the amendment now.
Yeah.
This is Dustin's amendment. That was seconded by someone over here.
Susie.
By Susie. Thank you, Susie. All right, is there any further discussion on Dustin's amendment? All right, let's go ahead and take it to a vote. We'll try acclamation first time out. All in favor of the amendment to the motion, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? All right, the amendment is accepted unanimously. Now we're back to the original motion made by Christine. I'll try restating it.
Oh, must I?
Okay. It's your baby, you birthed it, so.
Right.
you know,
I actually really like where we're going with this because we're getting the bookends that we need. We have the 5-year.
Okay, give me the motion,
Okay.
please.
My motion is that the March presentation that is planned include the high injury corridor speed study results.
Okay. And we had a second to that motion
Andrew.
by Andrew. Yeah. Is there any discussion on the original motion? See no discussion on the original motion. Anybody online have the temerity to raise their hand at this point? Okay. And again, by acclamation, all in favor of the motion as amended, please signify by indicating aye. Any opposed? All right, note that is unanimous. I can't wait to read the minutes on how that.
I can't wait for March.
I know, right? Okay.
Looking forward to.
Yeah, me too.
Connor, are you done?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Are you exhausted?
Thank you, Connor.
Thank you, God.
Thank you, Connor. All right, I think that takes us out of action items now, and we're into status reports. Correct?
Yes.
Am I missing anything? All right. TPO project prioritization process evaluation. Elizabeth Watkins.
Good evening, CAC. Elizabeth Watkins. I'm here today to seek your input on a few short-term recommendations that we would like to make to our project prioritization process. So you, the CAC, were part of the reason why we are undergoing this short-term evaluation on how we can prioritize projects. So this is all about table 2, for those of you who've been around a long time. It's also called the list of priority projects or the priority list. This is the wish list that we send over to DOT to say, these are our priorities, please fund them. So part of your feedback that we heard in earlier this year, you wanted us to take a look at that categorical ranking, maybe give some more information on project readiness, and just try to make the process a little bit clearer overall. You know, this is federal, there are a lot of people involved, so it's inherently messy, but we're doing our best to make it more clear and more transparent. So why does this process matter? Well, it does 2 main things. One, it helps prioritize a pot of federal funds, about $25 million per year, to local needs. So $25 million may sound like a lot of money, but to put in a little bit of context, it costs about $1 million to do 1 mile of sidewalk. So it's not chump change, but it's not enough money to make radical differences in our transportation system. So beyond this pot of money, it also serves as a way to have a public statement of community priorities. So that in itself is a valuable aspect. What is actually required from this list of projects? One, the requirement actually comes from Florida statute. In other states, MPOs, they don't do this. But because DOT does the programming, this is our main communication tool to communicate our priorities and to get that $25 million programmed. And there are often opportunities to partner because District 7 has been great and aligning work programs and seeing where there are shared priorities. The way we developed this is not prescriptive in statute. So we've had a fairly robust methodology on how we rank the projects that are submitted to us. It's important to note that these projects don't come from TPO staff. They don't come from the committees. They are submitted by our local government partners and part. And that's important because they're the ones who build it and operate it. And the final part that's important to know is DOT is one of the most important users of this document because, again, they're using this to program money to those projects. So this soul searching evaluation has only been going on for a few months, and it has to be fast and furious because we develop this list every year. So we don't have a ton of time to totally revamp it. We're trying to think of what are small efficiencies we can do before we get to our long range plan to align with what we're hearing from committees, public, and the board. So up to this point, we've met with all of our local government partners, see their feedback. We've talked with other MPOs that we consider peers doing great work, and we've done an existing process review. You are the last committee that I'm going to because unfortunately we couldn't get to it in December. So this presentation looks a little bit different. I have 4 recommendations that I want your feedback on because it will go to the board next week for their action because we have to turn around and start using these new business rules for the projects that will be submitted to us in the next few weeks. So again, there are four short-term actions I would love your feedback on. The first one is better incorporating project readiness into our list of priority projects. So the main challenge that we've really seen with this is there are like 72 projects that were submitted to us and ranked, but really about half of them aren't ready for implementation, whether they are currently in design or maybe they need another planning study, or they're just not quite ready, but only 17 of those were actively seeking funding for that year. So 2 things that we want to do to address this is to continue to work with our project sponsors in that development process and get with them early and regularly and say, okay, it doesn't seem like you're ready for funding right now. Let's consider this in the UPWP, or if you tried applying for this grant. So being more hands-on and partnering with our local governments and HART and getting their priorities and our shared priorities fit. And then another thing we'd like to do is screen some projects for readiness. If there needs planning studies to be done, let's redirect them through the UPWP or some other processes to get the feasibility done and really leave this list to focus on capital needs. The next short-term action we want to do is to reformat this list. Currently, it's very simple, which I think is a strength in its own. But when you look at what's actually implemented or what's actually funded, it's priorities 9, then 10, 11, 12, then 15. It doesn't go in that sequential order. Okay, we funded 1, we funded 2, we funded 3. So we want to provide more information in the structure of this list to give stakeholders, committees, and the public a better understanding of 1, why this project is on the list, and 2, where it is in project development. So this is just one example of kind of what we're thinking. Instead of just one status column, we want to have the phases of project development from planning to P&E to design to construction to give a real picture of where this project is in its development. The third short-term action that we would like the board to consider is that this is to shift some of those symbolic projects. So I mentioned at the beginning, this list does 2 things. One, it prioritizes funds, but it also can be a statement of priorities. And when you're doing those 2 things, it can be a little bit complicated because we're trying to achieve multiple things with one document. So our action is we want to consider only assigning a rank for projects that are actively seeking funding. We still need to coordinate with DOT on this, make sure that they are okay with this. So it's not, it may not be go before the board, but just wanted to bring it up here for discussion purposes. So does it give just a little bit more color to that recommendation? This graph, or this diagram, lists those 72 projects with each of those boxes that were included, but only the bolded ones, those were the ones that actually had applications and were ready for the next phase of funding. So we want to make that a little bit clearer in this next priority list. So for example, our smart cities projects are the top category. There were 9 projects submitted, but only 1 and 9 were ready. We would recommend that 9 be moved up to 2 and then explain why those other projects weren't ready for funding. Maybe they still belong on this list. Maybe they need to go for a discretionary grant application or it's in feasibility and it's important to save them on here. But we think by only ranking the projects that are competing for funding, it will make it a little bit clearer to the audience. And the final recommendation is less about the priority list, but more about our communication strategy here at the TPO. The TPO, we play a role in project delivery. And even from the previous presentation with Connor, Hillsborough County is a really big place. DOT, City of Tampa, Hillsborough County, they all have ownership and work programs, and we try to help communicate and tell the story, but the TPO board individually doesn't have a lot of control, right? Mm-hmm. So even though we have limited control, I think there's an opportunity to better communicate where we are making that impact and moving the needle. So one thing I really like us to do in moving forward is publish more stories about those outcomes for the projects that were delivered with TPO support with that $25 million. So some things I'm personally really proud of. Through this priority list, we help HART replace 1 bus a year. We've helped the city of Tampa implement 4 phases of the Green Artery as well as the Green Spine. We've helped Hillsborough County get that interchange of Big Bend and I-75 and then move into the bookends. And while the TPO didn't do that on their own, we have a piece of that, and I think it's important that we tell that story. So this isn't action. I really just would love your reactions to those recommendations. I know this is a process. It's kind of wonky, but I did my best to kind of tell you where we're at, and I would love any input you have on these recommendations.
Okay, See nothing on the left side. Ed, Susie, let's, Ed, you first.
Yeah, maybe I'm confused, but I was under the impression that what we were looking at was the way we prioritize projects in the TIP. And that we have, you know, however many it is, 80 projects, but, you know, like, safety projects were the #1 category. So you listed 15 safety projects, and then the next category, and as a result, like transit projects, because they were in the 3rd category, were like project, priority number 82. Well, I mean, somehow that's, I thought, was the issue we were trying to address, that we not create a uniform list of projects where all the Vision Zero is the very highest priority, and all those are, down to the lowest one of that is a higher priority than other things. I mean, I thought that's where we were going, and I could be mistaken, and tell me if I am, but I don't recall that this was all concerned about how we spend $25 million. It was about how do we prioritize projects in the TIP.
So you are right, but a little more context. Historically, I think there has been that confusion that the priority list and the TIP are the same thing. They are not. This list that you adopted last year, you'll see in the TIP in 6 months. So that's one kind of separation that's important. But your point is well taken about the fixed skyway transit projects were at the bottom. And that is a long-term recommendation that we're considering. But what it would take to do that would be to completely revamp all the evaluation criteria. Get a lot of buy-in to do that. We just don't have time with the short turnaround to completely revise the evaluation criteria. But it's something that we're definitely looking for moving into the next LRT.
Okay, I'm gonna stay here on the right side of the room, and work back over the other way. Susie?
Thank you, Elizabeth, for clarifying all that. I noticed you kind of are mirroring what I hear from federal. They always look for shovel-ready projects. Like, we want to throw you money now, but you got to be ready to go and have an impact. And that makes sense. We're following some of the best practices. My thought, I'm a nurse, so I always think this, and I also was in a bad car accident as other members of my family were. I kind of agree, though, we should always look at fatalities and serious injuries. Yes, I want a nice park, I want this, but I think our first priority, like Maslow hierarchy of needs, is to be nobody dies and no serious injuries. So does that go in the equation?
Does,
but it's kind of hard to, it seems like that you have so many impacts, it's hard to prioritize within it.
Prioritization policies where, based on the last long range plan, anything that addressed congestion was at the top of the list.
Okay.
And then the community through that survey said state of good repair and then safety projects. I also share that same priority with you of safety is a priority, and often we can fund those. So it's typically near the top of the list.
Okay.
But not the top priority given the categorical nature of our list as it exists today.
Dustin?
I got a couple questions real quick. I can combine both of them into one in statement here. So first of all, this 25 million, this is 25 million that happens every year or not?
Yes,
Oh.
but it's for 6 years out. That's another nuance I didn't bring up.
Okay,
Yeah,
and then, so you're doing this every 6 months?
every year.
Every year, but, okay, so you're saying that your timeline was over a year, but you had to condense it down to 6 months then for this to get it out there?
Really just 3. To get a consultant on board to do all the engagement and come up with some recommendations and then to bring it to the board for actions that we can actually do the work.
All right. So I like what you're trying to put out there because to me, it's showing transparency. I think transparency is the biggest key around here. The more transparent from government entities can be, the better off is. I know here within Hillsborough County, we try to pass many measures to help increase funding for traffic situations and projects. And for some reason, there's a part of population that, I don't know if they don't see the transparency, but takes it to court, gets it bought. But I do believe there has to be more transparency to get that out, to get the backing behind people, to get what we need to move things forward. So I appreciate it. I was just wondering about the timeline, because I mean, if it's something that happens every year, I hope that there's better schedules. That way you're not having to rush here to get us on board. That's all I got. Thank you, Chair.
Sure, thank you. Reva, did you have anything? Okay, left side of the room here. Carson?
I just want to say as feedback that I don't believe that the short-term action item number 3 aligns with the stated why it matters to affect community priorities, because communities can have priorities that aren't necessarily ready for funds. So I don't believe that only assigning rank to projects that are ready for programming represents the community's priorities.
Sorry. No. So are you saying that every project should be ranked, whether it's like assigned?
I'm saying that the readiness for programming shouldn't be the factor to decide if a project gets ranked or not. It should not, yeah.
Jamie?
So same thing, and I think it's the undertone, right, that some of our most important projects right now, or the things that the community wants the most, aren't ready, or whatever it is. And just with number 1 and number 3, like Carson just said, I think just because something's not ready doesn't mean that it's not the priority. And you know, you don't want to lose track of that.
Matt?
For action item 2, can you go over that really quick? Is that? Or actually, okay. I somewhat disagree with these two guys said in the fact that this format shows me if it's a priority for the community, we know where it is and why, and like where it is in the process, if it's not ready for the next phase. So then that allows us as community members to actually pressure those organizations to get their little duckies in a row so that these people can do their jobs. So by having a public sheet like this that kind of shows what it is, if you see a streetcar system is way at the bottom, and you know as a community that this is important, then you need to start going to your people and saying, hey, this is important, it's showing up at the bottom. So we either need to find a funding source, we need to get everyone to get their stuff done. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. So by taking away the power of number 1, number 3, you're actually losing the power of what community can do, which is this sheet is really, really powerful by saying it's not showing up as a priority because the organizations did not do what they need to do to get funding or get through the process for them to be able to put it as a priority. So it actually helps shuffle the people up because then we have awareness. And this sheet's a really good example of that, I think. Transparency. That's it.
Thank you, Matt. Christine?
Elizabeth, I thank you so much. This is a great example of how responsive you and the TPO staff are to when the CAC says, you're giving us information, it's very difficult to digest and understand. And I love the changes that you are proposing, and especially this reformatted priority list example. So I just wanted to say thank you, and I love it. I do love it.
Nothing, Andrew? Dana?
So the word priorities, in my mind, means that there are reasons why we care about this. Like when I've done studies on priorities in my like urban regional planning program and wanted to include things like resiliency and social equity and best practices and things like that. So nowhere in that was ever something to do with readiness. I have a question about what does readiness even mean? Because every project has these phases, and they're going to be at different points of like different phases. They're going to be at the planning phase, the design phase, the implementation phase. Just because we're at the planning phase doesn't mean it's not ready. It's ready for planning. So I don't understand what ready means. Is that just a question to the implementing agency? Are you ready? What does it mean?
Fair, that's a fair point. So in my mind, project readiness as it applies to this list is for capital projects. Because that's what that $25 million is gonna do, it's gonna get it into PD&E, into implementation. So planning is also important, but I feel like it could still stay on these lists, right? Like if it needs a planning study. But planning studies aren't usually funded from this list, like they go through our UPWP or they go through other capital improvement program processes to get plans started. So they deserve to be acknowledged, those things that need to be studied. But that pot of money is really to build things. So if the CAC disagrees and you think it's so important to have planning studies plus capital studies on there, that's feedback we can share. Or I don't know if Sarah has thoughts on that.
And one with that clarification to kind of also tie into what we've shared with you in the past meetings of what's coming up. If something is a planning study, the most appropriate place to recommend we incorporate that as a unified planning work program, which you might remember, we had that form open for you to provide your ideas of projects, and some of you did. And we heard from some other entities on that has closed. It was open for, I think, it was open from right after the November TPO board meeting until sometime in December. And we reminded you at your meeting last month about it. It's since closed, but we will take before you the draft unified planning work program that we're developing based on that, which you will take action on at your, probably also your March meeting. So planning studies really, in our mind, belong in the unified planning work program because that's what we're doing planning. But as they move out of planning is when they usually go in the transportation improvement program or really the list of priority projects. There is some fuzziness because some of you are familiar with the project development and environmental engineering, PD&E. PD&E studies belong on the priority list, not the unified planning work program. They are way higher of a magnitude than a planning study is that we can take on. So I think, and I know it's a really weird line, but something that is kind of planning, the UPWP recommendations, that's where that comes into play. And ideally, if it's in the UPWP, we do the planning study. We want the partner on board who can implement it, because then our hope is either in partnership with them or they themselves could recommend that project to be on the priority list and could advance it through that, kind of that pipeline that we envision. But I think that gets to what kind of planning study you're looking for. If it's a $1.5 million planning study, it belongs in the priority list.
When you say continuous as partners, can you just clarify partners for me?
So the TPO does not own or operate any facilities. We are not an implementing agency. We don't construct things. We don't design them. The partners that we work with that do that are the ones who usually submit projects for the priority list. So it is the local governments, Hillsborough County, the city of Tampa, the city of Plant City, the city of Temple Terrace, HART, is the transit agency. They are the agencies that request projects on the priority list, and they're the ones who actually own, operate, and could make that project happen.
So they'll handle and oversee the design of.
Right, the TPO doesn't do like the design or the construction of a project. We don't have that authority.
Right, understood. I've got a simple question.
Is there anybody else upstream?
I just have the quick clarification.
Please.
So if it doesn't drop off, can you pull up the reorganized priority list? Matt was saying that this is a great look.
Yeah.
Which ones are not ranked anymore? So like, if they're not ranked anymore, do they just drop to the bottom of the list and stay on the list, or do they completely go away? That was the only clarification I needed.
So if the project sponsor, if the local agencies submit a project to us, we will put them in our buckets, they will stay on the list. But what we want to do is give more color to where that project is in development. So say it's priority number 2, but they still need a planning study, that's not going to get funded, but it's still priority, so we want to keep it on there, but it's not ready for construction.
Okay. Andrew? No.
Yeah, I really like this reformatted priority list table. Does that already exist for like, is there a place to find all projects that have at least been planned? Or at least the planning study's been done? So we can see just where they're at in the process, so everybody knows what the next step is, what the next ask is.
So truly, that information does exist in a lot of places. So what we want to do is put it in one and update it annually, so that we can tell that story. So if the board approves these, it will be in one consolidated place.
And that'll only include the priority list, not the things that aren't yet on the priority list, could be. Right? Like I'm saying, let's say Dustin said at the UPWP meeting, he suggests I want a planning study in his town, and it gets done. It doesn't automatically go to the priority list.
No, because it would take it would take the city of Tampa saying, hey, TPO, we want to move forward with this to get it into design. So it would likely get there, but it would take another action of the implementing agency to request it.
If it was somewhere online, then Dustin could see, I can push my elected officials to make that project happen. It's already been planned. Maybe it was done 8 years ago. But it would let everybody know what projects are even on the table to go to their elected officials and ask for.
Yeah.
Matt?
I realize that these are new columns. I often find it confusing to know which partner is doing this, like Tampa Street is actually FDOT, it's not City of Tampa. So if we actually know what agency or what the partner is, then that helps narrow us down to find that, which is where is it in the process. So is there already a location on that says the agency? There is, okay. Guess you look better. Thank you.
Okay. Are we good in the room? Joe?
Real quick, thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Watkins, you know my priority list. These things are needed. Will that affect where they are on the priority list using?
I'll take an example of a project I know is near and dear to your heart, the street car extension. That would still that would still be on our priority list, but it would show that it's currently in planning since the city is undergoing the project development right now. So it will still be on the list. It will still be lower because we can't really change at this point, those kind of that categorical nature of them. It will still be in a major project because that's sourced from our LRTP. So just to answer your question, it will still be on the list and the status of it will be.
So are we, please no offense to you, I don't mean it this way, but it just seems like those things that I would like to see move up higher, the streetcar and the Bright Line station, where they're at on the list is always going to be shoulda, coulda, woulda. And unless we move them higher on the list and say, okay, we don't have the money for design. We don't have the money, but they're still higher on the priority list so that when that money does come through, boom, we did it. We don't have to wait. And it's troublesome to me that we have these projects in mind that are vital to the city of Tampa, to Temple Terrace, to Plant City, to unincorporated Hillsborough County that are so low on the priority list simply because the funds are not there.
Only we increase mobility fees to,
That's something that we really need to do. I'm not going to argue with that.
Yeah, it's just that.
But to keep that on the to put those higher on the priority list, that is sending a clear message to our representatives to say, that's what we want. That's what we need. And again, I'm always talking streetcar. I'm always talking Bright Line. But if we don't do something about it now, cost, labor, everything 10, 20 years from now is going to be too expensive to afford it. Those things need to be at least in the top 5 so that if money does come through, funnel it right there. Thank you. I meant no disrespect. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Dustin?
Well, I want to piggyback on what Joe's saying here is the fact that I think if we provide more information, and I don't know if his project, his specialty project, near and here is on a separate list, but I think if you apply this formatting to those also, it provides that transparency. So from a public perspective, we see it, be like, okay, last year was still sitting in planning. This year, why is it still sitting in planning? Hey, now we can pull out our pitchforks and shovelers, and march down the street, be like, hey, what's going on here? Let's move it. You see what I'm saying?
Let's do something about it.
Exactly.
Okay, Elizabeth, thank you. Traffic signal prioritization study, Wade Reynolds. Wade, first of all, we were supposed to get to you a half an hour ago. So I apologize. I apologize that we were a bit behind on the calendar, on the schedule. You've agreed to make this a little bit more brief than had originally been scheduled. I understand you'll be back again in a month or two with a more fulsome presentation as an action item. Is that
We will
correct?
be back for action next month.
Okay, so this is a preview.
Yes, sir.
All right, have at it.
And if anybody would like to email me with ideas in between now and next month, you are certainly welcome to do that if you have thoughts.
Thank you.
So this study, really the origins of it are threefold. You may have seen in the priority list slide from Elizabeth that the first 9 projects are the smart cities category. That is what this study is designed to do, is create a framework for prioritizing those projects within the smart cities category, which was ranked #1 in our long-range transportation plan survey, which is why it is those first several projects. The second reason that this is moving forward as it is we learned a lot after the storms a year ago. Many signals that did not have battery backup. The first night back, driving around, and you come up to a dark intersection and there's nothing blinking, there's nothing, and people just blasting through. And thirdly, we have learned that several signal or intersections that could receive upgrades, but the support structures just aren't capable of supporting the additional signal heads, even though the right of way is there on the ground in some cases. So with that in mind, the purpose is to assess the baseline condition and then establish the performance-based methodology that I was just starting to describe for those traffic signal infrastructure elements. So the benefits: aiding response time during emergencies, adjusting signal times to accommodate planned and unplanned events like concerts or sports events, supporting traffic studies related to Vision Zero. So there are safety benefits to many of these improvements that we can make. I believe you all may have seen the ICAS presentation from Angela Rao last month. I'm not sure if that made it through here, but that's a good example. And serving our partner agencies as a resource for coordinating signal improvements across jurisdictional boundaries. So the task 1 was a signal inventory. Task 2 is the prioritization methodology, which I'll go into in a moment. And task 3 is the ranking of intersections out of that. We have approximately just over 1,200 signalized intersections throughout the county. Temple Terrace does have signals. They are all managed by Hillsborough County, but you see the numbers for the others. So there are several prioritization considerations. Structural, the type, condition, and age. That could be you see a wood pole there. It could be a cement pole. It could be a metal mast arm. And the age of all of those: a mast arm rusts while a pole degrades. The cabinet, the age, the mounting type, and the height of that. You may have noticed a couple of cabinets for signals mounted way above the ground on a concrete platform. Well, they're more resilient to flood. And then, so lower ones in flood zones would get greater priority than ones that have already been raised up in that situation. The location, within a floodplain, on an evacuation route, or within the hurricane wind zone. So the further inland you get into Hillsborough County, the less the wind zone is what that refers to. And then the technology, flood sensors, and UPS stands for uninterrupted power supply. So battery backup so that it can keep flashing potentially after a power outage. So ranking the intersections, we have assigned numerical values for different things. Just looking at the structure type as an example, a mast arm would be 1, meaning the lowest priority. That is your metal mast arms that are very resilient to wind and other things. Concrete poles would be the second, and then strained wood poles would be the third. Span wire type and condition is the wires that go between those, and some of those are incapable of handling additional signal heads, as I mentioned earlier. Yes, so in the resiliency example, within a floodplain would get points. Not in a floodplain would not get points. On an evacuation route would get points. Not on an evacuation route would get fewer points. Same thing with flood history, yes or no, to improve those and limit the interruption in the future. So just as an example, we've given just scores, how some of these would show up. We are doing the full inventory at the moment, and that will come back to you next month. Just looking at some of these, you're looking at ones that are the top left box here in a floodplain and on an evacuation route, that would get a lot of points. And then it is not an elevated signal cabinet, so it would receive points for that as well. I won't go into each of those, but you get the idea. So some of the challenges have been that there is uneven data across jurisdictions. So we did have in the scope to fill out this database partially. We've had a little bit of extra money, and we are doing currently for the elements that we can via just Google Street View. You can get a lot of that information. We found it to be a little cheaper than we originally scoped it, and we are working to build out this database as much as we can, probably following up with an additional task to fully build it out later this year. So field visits, we did 3 corridors as part of this: US 41, Hillsborough Avenue, Tampa Road, and Manhattan Avenue, because there is an additional study going on Manhattan. So upon implementation, this will allow for agencies to submit for service block grant funding requests for traffic signal infrastructure. And we will have standardized data collection and a standardized database across all jurisdictions. And then we can be a little more proactive in repair and replacement rather than reactive. So again, I've told you that we're coming back in February for board and committee action. And ongoing, we will be building out that intersection database. But hopefully, if we receive your blessing next month, we'll be able to incorporate this methodology into the list of priority projects that will come to you in April or May.
Okay, Wade, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any quick questions? Dana?
When I hear traffic signal prioritization, I think about prioritization for buses. And so I don't know if it's too late to like change the name of the study to like investment prioritization, just like add a word just to make it more clear what it is.
I see your point, and it has been pointed out before. We'll see if we can add a word in there for the board and committees next month.
Thank you.
Christine?
Wade, is there any consideration in the data collection for whether or not a pedestrian push button is included and or functioning?
We do not currently have that in there. Pedestrian recall and pedestrian systems are typically standard, but you're absolutely right. There are signals that do not have it. And that is certainly a consideration that we can add. We probably have the data for whether it exists or not. And if it doesn't exist, we could probably add another column for points based on that. Thank you. That's a very good suggestion.
I would also like to have them assessed as if they're accessible from a person either on a bike or in a wheelchair or walking assistance device, because sometimes you've got a brand new gorgeous mast there, nobody can reach it.
Understood, and I've seen that exact condition where you have to reach across several feet of dirt to push the button, whereas if you were in a mobility device, you would not be able to do so. So those good points. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jamie?
And really in the same vein, if the mast arm or pole is in the very middle of the sidewalk or in the view shed, the view triangle, both of those things, I would love to see that in the study. But
I agree with you, and I will see if there is like an improper support structure mounting for existing conditions that we can include in that. That's a very good point, and they constantly block sidewalks. Yeah.
Susie?
That got me thinking, fatalities.
We have discussed awarding additional points to the higher injury network, that's certainly something that I'm in favor of.
Okay, Wade, thank you very
Thank you,
much. We have 30 minutes worth of agended material to cover in about 5 minutes before we hit our adjournment time, and they're almost all under Sarah's watch. Let me just say this, if you're on a hard stop and you need to leave at 8 because of whatever reason, your cat's waiting for you at home, I don't care. Feel free to go, all right? I promise to get you out here by 8. Sometimes I make it, sometimes I don't. But we have no other action items, and we don't need a forum. So Sarah, have at it.
Do it. We need to take questions if I cover anything too quickly. The next status report is the CAC membership update. Those of you who've been on the committee for a while will recall we do this every year at the request of the CAC to say how we're doing. So the CAC, the charge of the CAC when it was created in the bylaws is to reflect a broad spectrum of social and economic backgrounds of the community and also the geography. So we look at reflecting what the county looks like essentially demographically and geographically. So the CAC itself has, it is slow on there, 1 second. Let's see, I can fix that. The CAC itself has 16 members who are appointed by the voting members of the board or the agencies. So for example, we have the port, we have the airport, we have the county commissioners, city of Tampa council members, the city of Temple Terrace. So those of you who are appointed by an agency or a person count towards that 16, and then we have 20 at-large members. And we serve to, like I said, kind of proportionately represent the county to the best of our ability. So we look at what data is available. The data for the committee members comes on the self-reported CAC application form. You are welcome to make changes at any time. We have changed the application form to allow people to have more options than you did previously. So if you have questions about your information or would like to update them, please let me know or come and see. But essentially what this is saying was we are overrepresented with men and underrepresented with women compared to the county as a whole. In terms of age, we are generally underrepresented with under 25, which is not terribly surprising. I think it is hard, has historically been hard for us to find members who are under 25. And then they somehow soon get older and fall into the 25 to 34 category. Stop aging. But then we are overrepresented as we get to the older bands of ages, particularly 65 and older. Race and ethnicity, some key points here are that we are underrepresented with people who are Asian, and we are underrepresented for Hispanic or Latino. We have not historically tracked 2 or more races. This is something that is now available in our application form. So if someone wishes to report more than one race or add an ethnicity, please let me know. We're happy to update that with what your preferences are. And then we produce a map. The map is constantly changing. The county is divided into these geographies that have been in existence since I think the formation of the CAC in this format. But we do look at more than anything, those dots and those squares and other shapes and where the shapes fall in respect to the county. So we have done a better job than some of our past years of getting South County representation. But you'll notice we still have a lack of people in the Brandon area and some of our far reaches of the county, both to the south and to the northeast and northwest. So this is an update, no action is required, but we wanted to share this with you and also offer you that opportunity. Please contact me at any time if you change your address or if any of the other information we reported has changed. Please let us know because that does impact who moves forward on the committee at this at-large stage.
All right, thank you. Any comments or questions for Sarah? All right, then we move on to item D, standing member request.
Updates, not heard any progress on the bill regarding the Tampa Transit and on the regional MPO item. We did do a presentation to the TMA Leadership Group, which is the Transportation Management Area Leadership Group of the 3 MPOs in December, and we are working on putting together next steps, and I hope to have more information for you at your next meeting.
Takes us to unfinished business. The next CAC meeting is February the 4th at 6 p.m. Any member interests, contributions? Anybody want to add something to our increasingly long list? Andrew?
To understand how the mobility fee for city of Tampa, the increase that was recently passed, will impact funding or some of the priorities within the city, such as the streetcar and things that have been clamoring for.
Asking as it relates to the TPO or to the city of Tampa?
The increase was only.
Increase, just as a short kind of response, does not impact the TPO at all. The only way it could is if the city of Tampa maybe was using the money as a match or something, but that doesn't usually impact our processes. It would be internal to the city of Tampa.
So then maybe it's this city, I'm just trying to get an understanding of how those mobility fees will flow through the city of Tampa's budget for transportation, which we of course have, a vested interest in and reason why we're doing it.
I will note that it will say that it entirely depends on if we can get the city to one, schedule it to get them to be a presenter
Or their consultant.
or their.
Any other member interest contributions?
Don't hold your breath.
Okay, before we adjourn, and we actually did pretty good with that 5 minutes.
Well done.
We're pressing 30, thank you. I have a confession to make, and we'll use this as a teachable moment. Earlier in the meeting, when we were trying to litigate the motion that Christine was going to make and required discussion with Dana, I suggested that the two of them leave the room and have a discussion about it and come back. Had they done that, it would have been a violation of sunshine. I'd like to think that I would have caught that before I let it happen, but my right arm over here caught me. She didn't say why, but after I took a minute, I realized why. I was trying to facilitate it, but it would have been a violation of sunshine. We have not had a presentation on sunshine in a while. We probably should have one. We have a lot of new people here, but we all make mistakes. That would have been mine. Right? So I just want you to know that happened, learn from it. We'll move on. It's not my job to try to encourage law violations. So any questions or comments on any of that? No? Okay. Thank you all very much for coming. Appreciate it. Good meeting. It's 8:04. We're adjourned.
Chair.
Yeah, my understanding is I'm not allowed to talk to you outside the room.
Well, not about our business.